Seats still to be called.
Of course, there are lots and lots of seats still to be called. But let me ask you guys: do you guys understand? Do you understand what's going on tonight?
It's very difficult to see an overall picture because it doesn't feel like the results are backing up the exit poll at the moment. The Tories seem to be not doing as well as the exit poll suggested. I agree with you, they don't appear to be getting towards an overall majority. The numbers will look, I suspect, rather different to what we've been thinking they were going to look like at the beginning of the evening.
Lord Reynard, what do you think's going on? Because you guys aren't doing particularly well either.
2/3 of the seats are safe, and of course there are no surprises there. In the third of the seats that are not safe, I think we'll see quite different things in different places. Not very long ago, the Conservatives were boasting they would gain a lot of our seats, yet the evidence so far is they're certainly not doing that. But the night is yet young. Your exit poll has been wrong before about the Liberal Democrats in particular. Last time you said we'd get 51 and we got 62.
But let's talk about
let's see how many we
results.
get this time.
You wanted to take Durham, didn't you?
Well, of course we'd like to take a Durham.
You failed.
And of course the Conservatives expected to take Torbay, but we doubled our majority.
But you know, a couple of weeks ago, it almost was being said that Nick Clegg could walk on water. We are not seeing the results in the constituencies.
Well, that was being said by some people, but we started the campaign below 20%. We don't know where we'll finish it. Certainly above that. And certainly I think British politics will never be the same again. Because now all three parties
How many times have we heard that?
are somewhere between a quarter of the vote and a third of the vote. That's three main party politics permanently here in Britain.
There is going to have to be a change in the system after this, isn't there? I mean, something has altered.
Well, the public are giving all the political parties a message, and they're doing it through the existing system. I think we need to see the result before we determine what changes, if any, are needed. I say they're giving the message because it's pretty clear, isn't it, that they're saying, I don't claim that we're popular at the moment. The Tories are exciting no enthusiasm.
You must be thrilled that your friend Gordon Brown is going to be, as far as we can see, in Downing Street for as long as he can hang on.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you quite mean by that. If there's an overall majority, that will be till tomorrow. But if the Tories miss 326 by a significant amount, then what are the public saying to the Tories?
All right, David?
Aberconwy, a Conservative gain from Labour. Gita Bebb takes that, a majority of 3 and a bit thousand. And Labour goes into second place, swing to the Conservatives 7.6%. And Loughborough, Conservative gain from Labour in Loughborough, University Town, near Nottingham, between Nottingham and Leicester, and a swing to the Conservatives there of 5.5%. So we've got news of from Broxtowe, of a recount, and I hope I can join John Hess and find out what's going on in Broxtowe. John?
Well, the situation here, David, is a recount has been called, and I think it's an indication of how close it is. This is one of those key marginals that are dotted around Greater Nottingham, just off the M1 motorway. We heard so much about the importance of motorway man and motorway woman in this election campaign, and there are up to 12 Labour marginals that could be affected by tonight's result. We're getting a very mixed picture in the East Midlands. We've just heard about Loughborough, Labour holding on to Gedling. Labour sources here are saying that they may have lost already Leicestershire North West, and they're also talking about Ashfield. That's the former seat of the Defence Secretary Geoff Hoon. Controversially, Labour put in the TV presenter Gloria De Piero. There's a very strong challenge from the Liberal Democrats, and that's supposed to be very tight as well. Here in Broxtowe, on the outskirts of Nottingham, it looks as though we may have a result in about 15 to 20 minutes or so.
Just one recount, is there?
At the moment, David, yeah, just the one. But I think what's starting to emerge is that what we might find here is that element of tactical voting that we heard so much about. This is an area where normally the Liberal Democrats would get about 15 to 16% of the popular vote, and the Labour Party have tended to rely on the Liberal Democrats voting tactically to keep out the Conservatives. There might be a different picture here this evening.
Well, it was 42nd in the target list for the Conservative Broxtowe. We'll get the result when it comes. Let's have a look now. Emily, can we see the effect of the Tories on the Dems
we're
and
looking
what's
for
happening?
patterns, and it's very
Yeah.
difficult to see anything consistently emerging. But they don't appear, the Conservatives, to be toppling these Labour ministers. We saw Gedling, Vernon Coker hanging on there. We saw Ben Bradshaw in Exeter hanging on there. But what is happening is they are pushing away these attempts by the Lib Dems in very marginal seats in the south. Let's take you to Newbury and show you the kind of swing. So the Conservatives holding on here, but the kind of swing they're getting here is the sort of one they'd really like to be replicated to give them that majority overall. Same sort of pattern in Guildford. Let me just show you that. Again, they've held on to this. This was the number one target for the Lib Dems, but the Lib Dems failed to take it. 6.9, just slightly less, but 6.9 exactly on that technical swing needed for a parliamentary majority, Peter.
And we're hearing that they also held Eastbourne, which was another Lib Dem target. This matters not just for the Liberal Democrats, but the whole Labour strategy tonight of a coalition with the Liberal Democrats depended on the Lib Dems taking a number of Tory seats, pulling the Tory total down, pushing the Lib Lab total up, when it's not happening in these Tory Lib Dem marginals.
Just to remind you, if you're looking at this, this is the 2005 result. We haven't had Eastbourne in yet. We're waiting for that. But it looks as if, Peter, that the Clegg effect that we heard so much about is not really translating into seats.
Absolutely. The Liberal Democrats did only a 1% swing in Eastbourne. It looks like the Tories have held it. Another swing to the Tories in a Tory seat being defended against the Liberal Democrats. Nick Clegg will be unhappy with this, but I think Gordon Brown won't be too pleased with that either.
It's very rare to find any kind of pattern on a night like tonight, but we'll be looking out and seeing if we get 3 in a row at least here.
This is a very mysterious election, isn't it? Very confusing, and no clue yet what's going to happen, except it now looks quite hung.
I think it does, because we've seen target number 43. The Tories didn't get. I think I'm right in saying Gedling. We know they didn't get. Telford was off the list, but they didn't get. There are a few signs there of Tories struggling to get seats that they ought to get. But there is this extraordinary story of Nick Clegg walking the debates, apparently, huge approval ratings, talk of a massive increase in his support. He's really struggling to gain any seats at all at the moment. Keep having to stress at the moment. And it maybe is a reminder to us that people saying they think someone does well in a debate is rather different from them actually voting for them.
But it's a bit early to add up their actual votes.
Yes.
They may have done well in the popular vote.
Well,
I don't know where their votes...
Oh, in the popular vote. And
yes.
the difficulty always
Yes.
under this voting system is that their vote can be thinly spread across the country, not bringing you gains in seats, but an increase in vote share.
We've got a result coming in from Vale of Glamorgan. This is the second target for the Tories in Wales.
41. Davis, Alana Elizabeth, Labour Party candidate, 16,034. Harold, John, Christian Party, proclaiming Christ's Lordship, 236. Johnson, Ian James, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 2,667. Barney, Kevin, UK Independence Party, 1,529. Parrott, Eluned Sian, Welsh Liberal Democrats, 7,403. Thomas, Rodri Hugh, Green Party, 457. The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows: want of official mark, 0. Voting for more candidates than the voter was entitled to, 17. Writing or mark by which voter could be identified, 4. Being unmarked or wholly...
Well, I'm not sure quite what's happening there. Very fastidious returning officer in Vale of Glamorgan, unlike some of the ones we've had, explaining exactly what had happened. We haven't had the result, and we'll show it as soon as we can, but we're now in Montgomeryshire, and that was a Conservative gain in Vale of Glamorgan. Important that. We'll come back to that. Here is Lembit Opik, MP since 1997 in Montgomeryshire in Powys.
I, the undersigned, being the acting returning officer at the election of the Member of Parliament for the Montgomeryshire constituency, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Dwi yswydd am lofnod isod sef swyddol cynlediau a ddyliad aelod sy'n yfol dros y ddyliaf sy'n drafaldwyn drwy hyn a hysbysu bod nifer y pleidlasiau a cyfnobod I bob ymgysydd diweddig y ddyliad fel a ganlyn. Colbor Nick, Labour Party candidate, ymysgif pleidlafur, 2,407, Dwyfil Pedwar Chant a Saith. Davies Glyn, Welsh Conservative Party, ymgysydd Plaid Geirwedol Cymru, 13,976, 13,976. Ellis Milton, National Front Wales and United Kingdom, 384, Tricant Wyseg Pedwar, Vacan Helef, Plaid Cymru, Party of Wales, 2,802, Dwyfil Oescant a Ddwy, Lawson Bruce, Independent and Ibanol, 324, Tricant Dwyfig Pedwar, Opic Lembit, Welsh Liberal Democrats, Democratiaid Ryddfrydol Cymru, 12,792, Indeg Dau Mil Saith Cant Naddeg Dau, Rowlands David William Lloyd, UK Independence Party, Clyde Annibythiaeth a D, 1,128, Millen Cant a Doveg Wyth. And I do hereby declare that the said Glyn Davis is duly elected member for the said constituency.
Well, this is a big victory for the Conservatives in Montgomeryshire. Conservatives have gained it from the Liberal Democrats. Lembit Opik, who had a majority before of 7,000, has lost his seat in Montgomeryshire to the Conservatives, to Glyn Davis, former member of the Welsh Assembly, a farmer. And this was 210th in the Conservative targets. So very low down, so to speak, their target, and they've taken Montgomeryshire. Here's the swing. Huge swing. Just over 13% to the Conservatives. And Vale of Glamorgan, which we were looking at, is the other one, which was also a Conservative gain. Conservative gain from Labour, from Alana Davis. Alan Cairns takes it, Welsh Assembly member again. There's the change, up 4, down 8 for Labour, and the swing, 6%, Labour to Conservative.
Well, there we're seeing surprises again, aren't we? Vale of Glamorgan
Extraordinary.
was second on the list of Tory targets in Wales. Not a huge swing required. They'll be very pleased to get that, but they should get it if they're going to get a majority. Montgomeryshire's come from nowhere, really. An asteroid has clearly hit Lembit Opik, who's been warning about an asteroid hitting the Earth for a long time. Well, a political asteroid's just hit him.
But Lembit Opik is, he's rather a characterful, colourful MP. You'd have thought he'd be one of those people who'd hang on by...
Those are words that have a number of meanings and not always to everyone's taste.
Not all favourable in Wales. I don't know about your taste, but not so favourable in Wales. Sian Lloyd joins us from Cardiff now. Sian, what do you think about what's happened there?
Well, yes, it's very interesting, isn't it, to see the swing, because the earlier results that we saw coming in, the Vale of Clwyd and Clwyd South, the Conservatives didn't quite get the swing that they needed
But
there.
what about Lembit Opik?
Well, yes, Glyn Davis, the Conservative candidate, is very well known on the ground there. He has been an Assembly member, a very high-profile one, who has worked very, very hard. I know that they've been out on the stump a lot, and I wonder what the people of Montgomeryshire actually thought about Lembit Opik's profile and exposés in the press. Obviously, this was a huge swing. I am hearing at this count in Cardiff, where Clwyd West is counting behind me, that it's very, very tight between Labour and the Conservatives here. Now, 11% swing would be required for the Conservatives to take it from Labour. It's been a Labour seat all along. Only once has it been held by the Conservatives in 1983, since the Second World War. So we're waiting to hear what's happening here. The declaration, we're not sure when it's coming. We've been told that Cardiff South and Penarth is likely to come first, and that's expected in half an hour's time. But the other picture that we're getting from Wales is Plaid Cymru, and it is expected that they are going to be disappointed this evening. They failed to take Ynys Môn, which was one of their top target seats, and Ieuan Wyn Jones, the leader of Plaid Cymru, is the Assembly Assembly member for there. And Llanelli too was one of their targets, although they did manage to bring down the Labour vote there by about 5%.
I'm going to stop you there. Thank you.
Way.
I'm going to stop you there. We'll come back to you later on because we want to go to Basildon South, where we've got a result being declared.
Metcalfe Stephen James, the Conservative Party candidate, 19,624. Roberts Christopher, British National Party, 2,518. Smith Angela Evans, the Labour Party candidate, 13,852. Smith Kerry James Darrell Luke, the UK Independence Party, 2,639. William Jeffrey, commonly known as Jeff, Liberal Democrat, 5,977. X, none of the above, 125. I do hereby declare that Metcalfe Stephen James is duly elected, and the total turnout is 62.2%.
So, Stephen Metcalfe, works in the family printing business, has taken this, won this seat from Labour, Basildon South and Thurrock East. It's a new seat, but it takes in a lot of the old Basildon, which in '92 was famous as a sign of a Tory victory, though I'm not sure that it qualifies quite for that this time round. The swing in Basildon South, 7.5% to the Conservatives.
Yes, it's not the same seat as was fought in 1992.
No,
They've been, but it symbolically was huge then, and that will be a pleasing figure. But if you go north up the country to Bolton North East, a result that I think we're just getting in, have had in, the Tories have failed to get Bolton North East. Symbolically important for them to try and win in the Boltons. It's 115th on their target list, and my understanding is they've not taken that seat.
No, you're dead right. The majority is 4,000 for David Crosby. So he's only dropped 400, and the Conservative vote went up 2%. So swing of just 1 and a bit percent.
My guess would be that the Tory High Command would have absolutely expected to get Basildon very easily, and will be quite worried that they're not getting a seat like Bolton North East.
No, OK. Let's have a look at Wales. Jeremy, can we have a look at Wales, which is turning out very interesting?
It's absolutely fascinating what's happening. Let's look at the map here first of all, just to say that if we're looking for a pattern, here it is. These are the seats coming in, trying to make sense of the shape of these results. I'll put the swingometer on the screen behind me so we can actually compare what's happening in England with what's happening in Wales. So we've identified the English seats here. If you just come over, and we'll see what the swing is in England that we've seen so far. And you can see 5.7% of the Conservatives. Now, the initial thought was that England and the English swing to the Conservatives was outstripping what was happening for the Conservatives in Scotland and Wales by miles. It may be in Scotland, but actually, have a look at this. We'll bring the Welsh seats up, and now we ask the swingometer to show us the swing to the Conservatives in Wales. And it's down a bit, 4.9%, but as we've heard from Montgomeryshire and we've heard from Aberconwy and Vale of Glamorgan, the Conservatives are doing pretty good business in Wales tonight. So as far as the splitting, the regionalising, the hodgepodge elements of these results, Wales is not that far behind England in terms of Conservative swing against Labour. David.
Jeremy, thanks very much. I just want to pick one thing up with you, Nick, which is the well, look, we've had 112 seats in. The Liberal Democrats have got no change in the share of the vote from the election of 2005. Now, what was all that about? I think everywhere we went, everything you heard, every time, people watching the debates and all that, it was all going to be Nick Clegg, Nick Clegg, Nick Clegg. Nick Clegg obviously believed it. And at the moment, I mean, it may change a bit, They're exactly the same, their vote. Where have all these people gone to?
Well, it's certainly the case that Nick Clegg himself, after that first debate victory, was very, very nervous that the classic two-party squeeze would operate, and that when voters were told, both by Labour and by the Tories, that really it was only a choice between those two, that you really only ended up with Gordon Brown or David Cameron in number 10, that would squeeze down people. And I think there was a...
Well, it's a nutcracker. It's a hell of a squeeze.
Oh, no, I know.
It's
It is
a complete
extraordinary.
clamp
I would
they've
never...
put. If this is so, it's a sign that you cannot break through from this two-party system.
Well, extraordinarily difficult to do it, despite that massive leg up he had with the high profile that he's had in those races. And what we're seeing is higher turnout in these marginal seats, and it's hurting the Liberal Democrats, because it seems to me in some Labour-held seats, Labour people are coming out to secure those seats, and in some Tory target seats, they are coming out in large numbers, and the Liberal Democrats have really been hurt by it.
I mean, the current state of things is down 11 for Labour, down 1 for the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah.
Up 12, I think, for the Tories.
You know, they were beginning to talk, the Liberal Democrats in private, of getting 80. They used to have 62 seats. Some even had wild dreams of having 100 seats. And the key of this election was to be seen to break through. Now, the reason this also matters is if Gordon Brown is hoping to be able to say tonight, and all hints are that he is, that although he has lost, although Labour have lost, that there is a mandate for, if you like, an anti-Tory progressive
Parties
alliance.
of the left, progressive, that's
Bit
right,
tricky
yes.
to argue that on the basis of the results we've got at the moment.
Yes, all right. Let's go. I'll come back to you, Vernon, but Andrew seems to be having a very, very jolly time down on the river and got some interesting people with him, so let's go down there. Andrew.
Thank you very much. We've got the first editions of the newspapers, but they all went to press before they had any idea what the result was going to be, so I think we can ignore them, except for one, the Financial Times, which is not leading on the election, but on markets tumbling across the world. We are now in a sovereign debt crisis that started in Greece, went to Portugal, then Spain, and hit New York. The editor of the Financial Times is with me. What do the markets make of a hung parliament?
Well, I think they can live with it. Actually, so far, the bond market opened early, as you know, this morning.
Now.
And there's been a reasonably favourable reaction in the gilts market to the idea of a possible Conservative majority.
But they have no idea what's going to happen, do they?
They don't, but they also think this idea that the sky is going to fall in if there is a hung parliament, the Tories say get 300 or so seats. This is manageable, and I think the city believes that.
Richard Lambert, Director General of the CBI. What do the markets make of a hung parliament's ability to cut the deficit?
Well, it's interesting that over the last few weeks, when the probability of a hung parliament has risen sharply, the markets have been very stable. Sterling hit a 3-month high last week.
It's now 148 to the dollar.
Yeah, but funny things are happening. This is kind of noises off. I mean, this is a sort of sideshow in what's happening in the international bond market. Clearly, there's a crisis going on in the bond market. Clearly, the sovereign debts are on everybody's mind, and that will give extra incentive to the next government to get a grip on our public finances. I think we'll give them extra sort of urge to get going.
Steve Easterbrook, if we have an uncertain result, which seems to be the way we're heading at the moment, what does that mean for business? Make you more nervous?
Yes, I think it's what business has been fearing. I think business has been eager for this election to come around and actually deliver a government with a strong enough mandate to give business certainty. Business needs to make investment over long term, be on staffing or capital investment. I think if there's any delay in that certainty coming through, that concerns business, because it actually concerns consumers.
Until we see the shape of things, we don't know what it's going to be like, but it looks like we'll either have a minority Conservative government or some kind of centre-left coalition. Now, both must bring question marks over how you're going to cut this massive deficit, because the decisions are going to be painful.
Yes, and of course, none of the parties has set out in any clear detail how they propose to cut the deficit. Having said that, I think that there is a clear willingness to do so. What we need is a credible plan over the next year on how to reduce this. You know, it's 163 billion pounds, Andrew. Pretty soon that adds up to some serious money.
Well, it's heading for a total debt of $1.5 trillion.
Yeah, cuts in public services, wage freezes, all this is going to have to be part of the package.
There has to be a concern, Mr. Lambert, that this sovereign debt crisis that is sweeping across Europe at the moment, it cannot leave Britain untouched.
We're not Greece. for a number of reasons. One, we're not members of the Euro, for which we have to thank Mr. Brown, among other
Yeah,
things.
not the Financial Times, which was always in favour of it. Including when you were editor.
Oh, is it? We're talking about
You've changed your mind too. You like the Liberal
we have a flexible
Democrats.
currency. We have long maturity for our debt. We have, a pretty good national balance sheet.
Right.
We're not Greece. It's going to
And
be
we
all
don't
right.
see
Andrew, relax.
McDonald's in Britain priced in euros yet. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's go back to the studio.
Thanks, Andrew. Whitney, David Cameron is there, and it looks as though he's just checking through his vote. He got 25,000, nearly 25,500 last time round. And, well, he could, I suppose, claim victory, or at least give an indication of what he thinks is happening tonight and what his position is. But on the other hand, quite often leaders of parties don't use this opportunity to do that. They speak in rather more general terms. But he looks as if he's studying something quite carefully there.
I think he'll be very, very cautious about claiming victory. There are too many poor results for the Tories in some of their target seats to do that. I've no doubt that he'll claim that Labour have been rejected and that Gordon Brown has been rejected, because that is the narrative the Conservatives want to get going this evening, that whatever their result is, they will claim it's clear that Labour have lost.
Annunciata Rees-Mogg, who denied that people had tried to make her change her name to Nancy Mogg, failed to take Somerton and Frome from the Liberal Democrats. It was number 11 on the Tories' target list. But it was held by David Heath, been the MP there since '97, Liberal Democrat shadow leader of the House. And that's just the raw result. We'll leave it at that and have a look at High Peak. Conservative gain in High Peak on a swing of 6.5% from Labour. Andrew Bingham, the new MP. And now Eastleigh, Chris Huhne's seat. Home Affairs spokesman for the Liberal Democrats, and they're being on stage there. He's the second figure from the right. He's been there since 2005. He ran against Nick Clegg for the leadership of the Liberal Democrats. Came second to it, a financial journalist, an economist. He has a majority of 534 in Eastleigh.
Good evening, everybody.
12th target for the Tories in terms
Pamela
of possibility.
Holden-Brown, being the returning officer at the Eastleigh constituency for the parliamentary election on Thursday, 6th of May 2010, give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate is as follows. Barraclough, Leopold Dominic, the Labour Party candidate, 5,153. Finch, Raymond Terence, UK Independence Party, 1,933. Huhne, Christopher Murray Paul, Liberal Democrat, 24,966. Hutchins Maria, the Conservative Party candidate, 21,102. Lowe, Keith, National Liberal Party, Liberty, Independence, Democracy, 93. Pusey, Tony Stephen, the English Democrats, Putting England First, 249. Stone, David Robert, Independent, 154. There were 75 spoilt ballot papers, and the turnout was 69.43%.
So you wouldn't have thought it from his face. Chris Huhne looked like somebody in defeat, biting his lip, almost fighting back the tears, but no reason for it at all. He won Eastleigh, and his majority went up from 534 to just over 3,000. And a swing to the Liberal Democrats from the Conservatives of 3%. So that was good news for the for the Liberals, or the Liberal Democrats, I should say. They took Eastleigh, they took Somerset and Frome, and apparently they've also gained Eastbourne. Nigel Waterson, the Conservative, is out at Eastbourne. He's been there since 1992, and his place has been taken by Stephen Lloyd, majority of 3,500 in Eastbourne. Here's the change since last time. 6% up for the Liberal Democrats, down 2% for the Conservatives, down 6% for Labour. So that's 3 bits of good news for the Liberal Democrats.
But one bit of bad news, for them, they're just hearing that they've lost Harrogate and Knaresborough, is news coming through. So I suspect that look on Chris Huhne's face is because of the national picture, not his own. You saw the huge contrast between the grinning picture on our graphic and the rather miserable picture on his face, even though he's kept his seat, was because he and many other Liberal Democrats believed this was a day they would break the mould of British politics, to use the phrase that used to be used in the 1980s, and at the moment, it doesn't look that way.
Harrogate and Knaresborough is interesting because it's 156 on the Conservative target list, a 9% swing, just over 9%, from the Liberal Democrats to the Conservatives. Phil Willis standing down there, the seat taken by Andrew Jones, yes.
And that may tell its own story. The sitting Liberal Democrat, popular figure Phil Willis, standing down, and they lose the seat. Chris Huhne, a very high-profile Liberal Democrat, still fighting, and he keeps on to his seat. And it may well be that we're seeing some sort of incumbency factor here. The Liberal Democrats, we know, work hard to keep seats, but when the candidate goes, it's hard for them.
We must deliver William Hague to Jeremy Paxman, because he's just waiting there at his count. Jeremy.
Indeed, thank you, David. William Hague, it doesn't seem to me that David Cameron's doing much better than the Conservatives did when you were leader.
Well, we're doing dramatically better. We're doing we've already won many seats that we could have ever imagined of gaining in the 2001 or 2005 elections, and it has to be said, we can all see from the results, enormous number of variations going on around the country. You've just been looking there on the programme at some Liberal Democrat successes, but then we're just celebrating here the Conservative gain in Harrogate. So there's a lot yet to come this evening, but what is clear is that the Conservatives are getting more votes and more seats than any other party, and of course we're very pleased about that.
Can you just tell me, what do you think the Conservative approach ought to be? Should there be an attempt for somehow the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats to hang on to power?
Well, that could only happen, it only happens if there is a hung parliament, and we don't even know the fact of that or the dimensions of that yet, but it could also only happen if the Liberal Democrats were to go back on how they said they would approach it, which is they said that the party that got the most votes and the most seats, and as I've just said, that looks like very likely to be the Conservative situation at the very minimum, that party should be the one that gets the chance to try to form a government. And I think in those circumstances, since that's the Liberal Democrat position, for Gordon Brown, a Prime Minister who was never elected in the first place, remember, to try, after being emphatically rejected by the country in this election, to hang on with a new pact with the Liberals, I think that really would be a shameless piece of politics.
Can you just hold with us a moment there, William Hague, because I think that Lembit Opik is able to join us now from his count where he's lost his seat in Montgomeryshire. Were you being punished for the cheeky girls and all the rest of it?
A superficial and patronising assumption, not least to the Tory who beat me fair and square. So you can do that analysis if you want to. I just say I feel really quite disappointed that I lost.
You have lost one of the safest Lib Dem seats in Britain. How do you want to put it?
Well, the last time we did it was a similar circumstance when Labour were collapsing and the Tories were doing well in 1979. I can't really give you a very informed analysis just minutes after the announcement, but let's be honest, I didn't expect the result, and I think nor did my team. We'll give you a detailed and informed analysis once we've had a chance to look at it ourselves. But, you know, it's a sad time for me. On the upside, of course, if you stand for politics, then you have to be willing to countenance the possibility of defeat, and that's what's happened to me today.
And what do you think your party should do? Should there be an approach from Labour to keep Gordon Brown in number 10?
Well, you don't get me in such a weak condition as to start pronouncing on questions way above my pay grade. I think the one thing I would advise, and it's nothing new, is it's all about programme for government. Nick Clegg is smart enough to know that he's not there to prop up other parties. He's there to get the Liberal Democrat manifesto forward. We've had that experience in Wales, and I'm sure he'll take that approach again. So watch this space, but let's get the results in before we start making those kinds of pronouncements, and let's see if we can make other gains than the Lib Dems as well.
Indeed. Back to you, David. I think you've got some exciting news from Birmingham Edgbaston.
It is that there's a recount in Birmingham Edgbaston, which was one that the Tories were hoping they'd take from Gisela Stewart. It was number 39 on their target list. I'm told there's been a recount, and Gisela Stewart has been high-fiving her supporters. Whether that bit is true or not, I don't know. And whether that means she's taken it, I don't know. But it is very significant there's been a recount in this seat in the West Midlands. West Midlands is an important area for Tory gains this time, and they were hoping to take that one.
Oh yes, I'd be hugely disappointed not to do
If
that.
they haven't, we don't know.
Gisela Stewart is a popular, hard-working local MP, has been critical of the government, as some people would describe her as almost on the opposition benches at times. Maybe she's gained from not seeming to be too close to Gordon Brown.
I'm keen to talk to Andrew Marr, if I can, in Witney, because I gather he's been speaking to some of David Cameron's close aides and has some news for us about David Cameron's attitude to this result, if indeed it is that they don't have an overall majority. Andrew.
Yes, David. I think what we're going to hear from the Conservative leader when he makes his speech, I would have thought in about another 10 minutes or so here in Witney, is again to say that Gordon Brown, the Labour Party, have lost this election, but not to go a great deal further than that. A very, very difficult time of the evening to make a speech for the Conservative leader. The view is still very strongly that if, as William Hague was saying on the show a little while ago, if the Conservatives aren't easily the biggest party in terms of votes and seats, they really have a moral and a natural right. But, and this is the important bit, David Cameron will not dispute the constitutional right, the traditional right of Gordon Brown to try to see if he can form a parliamentary majority if that's what happens. I think we'll also be hearing some very strong words on the democratic outrage, as a lot of people see it, that across the UK, people have been unable to cast their ballots. That is something that David Cameron, I think, will say